So Lucian says, one thing that works against people wanting to do live coding in Ruby, I somehow got the feeling that we raised the bar very high. What I mean by this, we expect too much quality. We have our own guidelines built on top of Ruby, and we expect them from other people. I think, okay, I think I agree with you. I also think that that has a lot more to do with that's more prevalent in the Rails environment than in the Ruby environment itself. Because Rails has all these, and I'm not trying to knock, I like Rails. I'm not trying to knock it. I'm just saying it has a different perception of this is how things should be, and you should know how to do this way. When I got out of that paradigm and went over to the Dragon Ruby and the Ruby game programming, you know, I didn't have Rails to worry about. It was just Ruby. Actually mRuby, which is even more different. It kind of freed me from that, because as I'm looking around, you know, Dragon Ruby's fairly new, comparatively speaking, to Rails. So there's not that bar that, that, hey, you should know how to do this in Dragon Ruby because Dragon Ruby's everywhere, right? It's not the same as Rails. So people are in here, like I'm constantly in the Dragon Ruby Discord because people are asking fairly basic questions about Ruby because they're not Ruby developers. They're game developers trying Ruby out, right? And I'm a Rails developer trying Dragon Ruby out. And so it's this thing where we don't have to feel so Ruby smart because there isn't a bar there yet. So if you're afraid of, if you're thinking the bar is too high, which being a senior developer has been doing this for a long time, I will tell you that I am still amazed constantly by things I see junior developers doing because they're thinking in a different way, right? So from my point of view, there is no bar here. It's, I do things the way I've learned to do them. You've got a new way of doing things that's probably better than mine. But I hear what you're saying, Lucian. I think that you're right, that that's intimidating because you sit here and look at things as a junior, you sit and look at things and say, I can't be that good. I don't know all that stuff. So I can't do it. Right. But you can. So here's a short recommendation for people who want to stream. He says, try Hanami 2, maybe. Very good. I mean, yeah. Go look at, just change the framework. I'm not saying that you should become a Hanami master or a Dragon Ruby master or forget Rails, you know, but play with something else just to get your brain working a little differently and to see that Ruby and Rails are not the same thing, right?
Yeah, I think that's, you know, it's in the name Rails. You are put on a constricted path.
Right.
And if you deviate it, it's called going off the rails. And that's, you know, you shy away from that. Whereas if you look at the Ruby language, I mean, you can build whatever you want with it, you know.
Right.
In your own way. And people make their own frameworks as you get to, you know, there's Hanami right here. So yeah,
exactly.
One thing that when I started doing, I actually started, you know, was it a decade ago or whatever, I did a little bit of game programming using Unity, and I had to learn some, was it C#, you know, and having that exposure changed the way I thought about things and building things. It was much more freeing than, you know, following the Rails path.
Yep.
But you can have your own freedom as well. It's just a lot of people kind of get stuck. I don't know if it's stuck in a rut or whatever, but stuck on the rails.
Well, that's specifically what it was for me. One of the reasons I wanted to try Dragon Ruby was I love Ruby, but I want to do something that's not Rails SaaS app stuff. I want to do something completely different. So Rebuilt says, I think the Ruby Rails divide you're talking about has a lot to do with the junior senior divide. Rails has a lot of senior developers. It does. And that's not to say that it's hard to get into Rails. It's actually easy to get into Rails. It's hard to get into a Rails job, I think, right now. Um, so I mean, I would, if you're on the job hunting trail, I would focus more on learning Ruby in different environments than Rails. I mean, learn Rails, but learn Hanami. Go play with Dragon Ruby. Go watch live coding of different people doing different things with Ruby, because it'll expose you to a lot of stuff. I'm actually learning some things in Dragon Ruby that I never thought about before, and I'm bringing them into work because they're good ideas that Rails programmers don't think that way. Even senior, really good Rails engineers don't think that way. Hey, Colin, what's happening?
Howdy.
So, yeah, I mean, get out there and try different environments with Ruby or whichever language you're using. Like .NET. You can use .NET to do Unity programming.
Lucian said, Eve is a senior. I wrote some silly articles exploring some ideas about how to use new features in Ruby. I expected a pushback and a discussion, but the level of criticism was to the roof.
Wow.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, and see, that's
Get off my lawn.
yeah, that's not okay. I'm happy to say I've never experienced that in the Ruby community or the Rails community. But maybe I've just gotten lucky. But so far, people are very receptive to new ideas. They may not use them, but generally they'll listen. Of course, maybe that's my experience has something to do with my personality of I really don't give a crap what you think about me, so I'm just going to tell you what I think and use it or not. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this. I think if I'm going to do live coding, maybe I won't use Ruby. Maybe I'll actually do some Elixir or use the Phoenix Web Framework.
Yeah, do something different.
Because here's the thing, I don't do a lot. I've never done any consulting with that. I do consulting with Ruby and Rails and, of course, the database consulting. And I do have a small app that does one part that's in Phoenix and Elixir, of course, but I don't get a lot of practice with that. So maybe live coding something with that would be help keep me in the frame of mind, because that's another thing. It allows me to think differently, because again, this is not object-oriented programming, it's procedural programming basically. So you don't use loops, you don't use the conditionals are different and things of that nature.
Yeah. Well, and that's something I quickly found out, because when I started coding with Chris, I started with a SaaS app in Rails. And after a few episodes, I quickly discovered that this just feels like work. This is what I do all day. I don't want to do this for fun. So that's why I switched gears and said, I want to do something that I don't do all day at work, right? So that I can look forward to this and have fun with it and explore new things. And it's not just the same old crap I'm doing 8 hours a day, 5-6 days a week, day in and day out. So, I would say if you want to try live coding and you're okay with learning how to fail in public, and I think that's a good skill to have. It's a skill. It needs to be developed, and this is a good way to do it. If you're going to do that, don't live code the stuff you do all day, every day. You'll get bored with it. It'll just feel like
burned
work.
out.
Yeah. And then you won't want to go back to work. You won't want to do your live coding. You won't want to ever see that stuff again because you're just constantly in it. Do something different. So Lucian says, still Ruby is a great community. I learned a lot from these interactions still, and I want to say in the end, I'm grateful that people took the time to give feedback, even if that was a critique. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I don't mind people saying, hey, here's what I think about your idea. Here's a different idea that I have. Here's a different thought that I have. Honestly, I think the best ideas come in the middle of people's opposing viewpoints. I see it as people care very much, and out of the care they want to correct or teach or give that feedback. Yep. And you really like that I chose Dragon Ruby. Good. I'm glad you enjoy it. I'm really enjoying it. It's fantastic. And the community there, if it's something anybody's thinking about getting into, I would highly recommend their Discord. They're a fun bunch of folks. Rebuilt says, every year I learn a new language. On my off hours, I just can't program more Ruby. I need something different. Absolutely. That's absolutely how I feel. I mean, I'm okay with doing more Ruby, but
out of curiosity, Rebuilt, if you're still there, what are some of the recent languages you've learned? Out of curiosity.
Yeah, I know a big one is that a lot of people have been learning lately is Rust. I haven't looked into it, but yep, there you go. Rust.
The year of Rust.
Yep. Because I know Primogen is really into Rust, and yeah, Lua. So I know Lua is a scripting language that I haven't ever done Lua, but it's used for a lot of modding of games and stuff. So I know that's a big thing in the modding community. I don't think it is as much anymore as it was, but it's still used quite a lot.
If you like this clip and want to watch another one, you can click right here. Or if you want to watch the full video, you can click here.